Question: how can I write and prepare my very first D&D game? This video is mainly targeted for new DMs, although I encourage you to watch this regardless of your experience. Okay, with that said, I will first share the assumptions I have about the game with you. Secondly, I'm going to give you the overview of the plot and we can visualize it together here. And lastly, we're going to take a look in the full checklist of all items you need to prepare in order to have a great game running. Alright, with that said, let's take a look into assumptions where first I assume that you're a new Dungeon Master. You have collected a little bit of experience, maybe played a few games, participated or ran a few games, but here you are continuing that journey. And secondly, you want to run your own game. Of course, there are official or unofficial storybooks or modules that you can run, but this time it's different because you're going to run your own story. Third, you would like to run a one-shot. What's a one-shot? You're going to play a single session. It's in contrast to having a campaign where you have multiple sessions going. You want to conclude the story within one go. That can be maybe 2 to 4 hours of gameplay. Fourth, you have already discussed and organized 3, 4, 5 players whom also are beginners and will come to your game to play with you. And lastly, you have limited preparation time. Of course, if you have a lot of free time, you can write a soap opera or prepare really a lot of details. But that could actually be a good thing to have limited time or time box preparation time, because then you would be more creative and also you would focus more on things that matter the most. And that's a skill actually that you would like to develop over time. All right, here's the plot. It's very simple, basic story that I've written, and let's take a look into it together, and then I will go through the details of it. A band of friends meet in a tavern, low on coin and looking for work. They take a simple job to clear out a goblin camp nearby. After the fight in the woods, they stumble upon a secret path that leads into a mysterious dungeon beneath the forest. Inside, they face traps, they face puzzles, and finally they face a monstrous boss. And beating it, they are able to claim a long-lost treasure, only to find that the real danger has been watching them all along. Alright, this story is very classic. It has all the traditional elements you already know. They meet in a tavern. The only reason they're going for this is they need some coins in order to get by. Goblins are quite classic. Finding yourself in a dungeon can also happen quite regularly in all of these D&D stories. And having a plot twist at the end could also be kind of a classic one. For example, this was the bad guy, but there's even a bigger villain in play, or maybe you have been fooled by the person who sent you to this task. So, very classic story, and the point of it is we want to focus only on the mechanics. We want to be able to expand the story. The story, you can of course expand it into multiple sessions or add more details to the tavern, to the city, to the town, to the forest. So there's multiple locations in it. Let's break it down now. Let's take a look into all places you need to go, and then we can extract based on that all items you need to prepare. The story starts in a tavern. So that's the first element you need to take care of, right? So tavern, obviously there are going to be a few people there. You need to have a quest giver. You need to have kind of an overshadow of, all right, there's goblins that are threatening the city, or maybe some character has been lost, or things like that, right? You don't need to, although this happens in a town or city, obviously you don't need to detail all of the things that happens around that, right? It does not matter actually who, for example, runs this city, where are all the shops, right? You want to focus only on the basics at the moment. So you have the tavern. Eventually your characters get the quest and they get going to the outskirts of the city into the woods. That's the second location. So we're going to have the woods, essentially maybe around the city, but I just do it there. So the second location is essentially the woods. So I'm going to just have a square here with woods. This could be an encounter. Maybe you find some woodworkers that give you a bit more details. It could be like kind of an investigation. It could be wolves, for example. So it could be danger on the road, or it could be guys on the road. But also, it could be just description. So you just describe how that location looks like. What is maybe there's a spring, or they have to pass a bridge. You can explain the details of the game to make it a bit more natural for your players, because they not necessarily see everything the way that you see them, right? So the woods will be the second location. Obviously, within the woods, within the woods, we would have the next, even more important location, that is the Goblin's Camp. So, the Goblin's Camp is where the fight's gonna take place. So, you wanna detail it out a little bit. How does it look like? You wanna draw maybe a layout of how the camp looks like. You want to prepare a few enemies that they need to encounter. Maybe they have a lead, maybe they have a wise goblin that kind of organizes them, and maybe they have a few tricks, maybe they have a few riddles for you. You want to prepare all of those items. Next part in our story was finding a hidden entrance, or some sort of a hidden dungeon entrance. This could be within the forest, so after they have done essentially the main task and they want to already go back home, they find it. It could be within the goblin camp, maybe it's under it, or it could be maybe in the rock formations or in the spring. Maybe somehow they accidentally activated, or maybe one of the goblins runs away, for example, to that direction, and then they get interested into that. So, hidden entrance would be the last point in the forest. So that would be ours, or the woods. That would be the second location. And the third one is the dungeon itself, right? So this is the dungeon that we have. So we have three main locations. Dungeon. We would have the dungeon. Here you want to design at least a trap or a puzzle, something like that, so that the dungeon doesn't feel so empty. You want to describe how it looks, have even physical formation of it, physical layout of it in mind, or maybe prepare a map or prepare items that you can put on the desk, put on the table, and your players can navigate through it. And as they progress, you can add more and more details. Within the dungeon, you have puzzles, and then there would be a room, maybe the final room, or at some point you have the boss fight, right? So I will just write maybe the boss fight. This could be in a hall. Maybe you can assume a hall at the really end. You're gonna have the boss fight room, and maybe a treasure room. It's in the same place, so maybe I'll write it that way, that you have also the treasure room in the same location. And what I would like to have at the really end is a plot twist. So maybe the boss was kind of a wizard or sorcerer, and upon them entering, they about to do a ritual, and you stop them, maybe you fight with them, and after that you realize, oh, that was actually the good guy, and the person who hired us was the person who was the villain, or who was the BBG. How would you do that? How would you make that part where the twist happens? You can use environmental storytelling. So usually how I would do it would be maybe like a letter, maybe like a book, maybe an amulet, or some sort of an item, an object that they find. And if you can physically give it to your players, it would really mean a lot to them. That would be really an interesting thing for them. So I would add a plot twist at this point. And with that, your players, essentially the game can end here with the plot twist, or if you want to have a full cleanup, they also go back all the way to tavern. So maybe here they find a book, or maybe they find a letter that describes to them something really interesting, or some journey, some other mission that they can do. And They go with that and they come back to the tavern in order to get recharged, to get rested. And the story essentially is cleaned up so that you can have this loop. If not, you can also conclude the story and not have any plot twists, any cliffhangers, anything, and just wrap up the story after that. So you also don't need to have this last part. It could also be just another boss fight, or maybe this was the first boss and there's another bigger villain all along. I've said the cliffhanger already, and we go to all the items you need to prepare. So, already discussed, but you want to have, of course, for your players, character sheets. This is all the details and all the stats that they would have for their characters. You want to prepare that, of course. You want to have 2 to 3 memorable non-player characters in the tavern. These are the acts that you would do as the dungeon master. These would be, for example, innkeep, the person who gives you the quest in the beginning, maybe the owner, maybe another traveler, maybe another family member, something like that. Next is the layout of the camp, layout of the goblin camp, and the enemy stat block. Then you would need kind of a logic for triggering this whole dungeon, right? How would they even go there? Is it like a stairs that go down, or is it through the well? That needs to have a little bit of a logic, right? To have a cohesive story. The next is the dungeon layout. You can also create maybe this with cardboard, really have this all laid out, or you can maybe use like a matte map to draw all of this, or you can maybe digitally prepare it, but have the layout of the dungeon in your mind. Within that dungeon, have a puzzle or a trap or something interesting for your players to find and tinker with. Next, you would need the boss. It could be that they are a wizard, or maybe they are a sorcerer of some sort, or a monster of some sort. It could be anything, honestly. Then the treasure that they find, or treasure, it could be coin, it could be anything of value, it could be anything that they are interested in. And the twist. So the twist, I would go for an environmental storytelling. I would go for like maybe a letter or artifact, something they find, and it would basically shift this whole story, shift the whole entire expectation, and that would be actually enough. Like, imagine that these guys are new players, right? They maybe watched Lord of the Rings, maybe they have seen Stranger Things, but these not require subverting expectations. You don't need to create here another novel or another completely original story. You can really go with simple items, really simple blocks, and really simple plots, and grow with your players. Start it very simple, and later on, you can create way more advanced stories. And that was everything I had for you. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please like and share and subscribe. Thank you so much, and peace.